This is English shorthand dictation number 126 and the dictation speed is 140 words per minute. Ready? Start. Mr. Chairman, Sir, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on the supplementary demands for grants and appropriation bill moved by the Honorable Finance Minister. Even though the grants now proposed do not cause any fiscal deficit as mentioned in the introductory note, I would suggest that future budgetary prescription should conform to the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. It should also be the prime duty of the Finance Minister to contain fiscal deficit within the manageable limits. At the same time, non-plan expenditure must be pruned. This is an absolute need. Among all the departments, the Department of Agriculture has to be given utmost importance. If we neglect agriculture, it will result in lesser production and productivity. While the population growth stands at 2%, growth in production on farm front is only 1%. This situation necessarily results in food shortage and alluring poverty. The figure of persons dependent on agriculture has come down from 71% to 62%, indicating lack of interest in farm operations. Hence, as urged by the experts, it would be better if the government allocates more amount to agriculture sector. I would also like to emphasize on the need for construction of additional godowns for storage of procured food grains because what is produced must be saved for consumption. At least in the next year's budget, the Planning Commission should be more liberal in allocating sufficient funds for construction of godowns. The budget allocation and the grants now made to education are not sufficient. The grant made under the head Right to Education is only rupees 4,000 crore. Some states are urging the central government to grant more allocation and implement the program as a fully centrally funded program. Taking into account the importance of the program and the state's financial position, the center should come forward to bear the expenditure up to maximum level for the right to education so that our dream becomes a reality. Our lofty aim to make higher education accessible to poor students and grant of education loan by banks is an important instrument. Even after the government gave an assurance that there will be a moratorium on interest chargeable to education loans, the banks are insisting on payment of interest when the students approach for loan for the second year. The bankers say that there are no clear instructions to them to postpone the payment of interest. I think there is some snag in it. Even though in the present grant under the head of higher education there is no mention about allocation for reimbursement of interest to the banks, the government has to bear the interest on the loan payable to banks by way of reimbursement through the Reserve Bank of India. I request the Honorable Finance Minister to streamline the procedure and ensure speedy reimbursement of interest amount to banks because they are all commercial banks and only after collecting the interest they would be able to move forward. Mr. Chairman, Sir, I thank the Honorable Members for the observations which they have made. Due to paucity of time, some of the honorable members were not given the opportunity to speak, but we will take note of those speeches also which have been given in writing. Our former finance minister has highlighted some of the issues and expressed his concern. It is quite natural for him to say that some of the expenditure proposals which I have brought in the first supplementary demand could have been anticipated and incorporated in the main budget. There is no denial to the fact that some of these could have been anticipated. Normally, the finance ministers do not come out in the first supplementary demand, which is almost 5% of the total budgetary expenditure and a substantial part of the GDP in terms of percentage. This time I wanted to make an experiment. I had this experience that when we give the money required to the states, one complaint that constantly comes is that much of the working season is lost. That is because we finalize the entire budgetary exercise by middle of May when the finance bill is passed. After that, by the time communications and other things are issued, the monsoon session starts. As a result of that, if there is a shortfall or an anticipated shortfall, when the actual is being given to them by the end of winter session through the second batch of supplementary demands, much of the working season is lost. I wanted to address this problem. Honorable members, I entirely agree with you that I cannot bring GST without taking the states on board. Without Prince of Denmark, I cannot stage Hamlet. They are the Prince of Denmark. They are the main actors. My opinion is that the central leadership should have discussions with them and find a viewpoint of convergence. I have no intention of becoming the super finance minister to interfere with the state GST. They will have their rights as I shall have my right because I am accountable to you. No tax can be levied without your approval. No expenditure can be made without your approval. Similarly, they have accountability to their states. That basic structure cannot be altered. So, what can we do for the practical purpose? It would be desirable if I can completely abolish the central sales tax, but I cannot do it alone. That can be done collectively by all the political parties which are running the state governments and which have representation in parliament also. I was trying to drive at the point that in the remaining 3 to 4 weeks, if I can place the Constitution Amendment Bill for the consideration of this House, then it can be sent to the Standing Committee. After scrutiny by the Standing Committee, in the winter session we can discuss the bill and pass it. As for the rate of taxes and other areas, I am engaged with the Empowered Committee of the State Finance Ministers. That is a good institution you have established. I congratulate you and I appreciate it. I am waiting for their report and their comments on the draft Constitution Amendment which I have given to them. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on the supplementary demands for grants. The government has taken measures to enhance the fund allocation to various ministries and I welcome the same. But at the same time, I would like to point out that the textile sector, which is the biggest job provider after agriculture, ought to have got more of fund allocation. Textile units that have facilities to compete with the global competitors were getting incentives from the government, but such grants are not being extended now for want of funds. This greatly affects the entrepreneurs and the textile industry. I would like to point out that the government has failed to monitor the growth of the textile sector. Cotton price rise, yarn price rise, power cuts, fall in dollar and euro values have all greatly affected the textile sector. Many of the textile units all over the country are meeting with huge loss this year. Small and medium units are being closed. Lakhs of textile workers dependent on these units are on the verge of losing their livelihood. This is due to our inability to cope up with the competition from China, Bangladesh and Pakistan. Yarn price in India has increased only because we have permitted export of cotton. It is a misconception that cotton growers benefit out of cotton exports. In fact, the middlemen procure all the cotton from the farmers at the time of yield and resort to holding. When cotton is to be exported, farmers do not have cotton. So naturally, it is the cotton traders who make huge profits. So cotton exports are not profitable to cotton growers. This has brought about stiff challenges to the textile industry. Hence, I urge upon the government to allocate more funds to agriculture and extend a grant of at least Rs 5,000 per acre to cotton farmers. This will directly benefit the cotton growers and will pave way for a significant growth in the textile sector. Cotton grown in our country must be processed entirely here, and yarn must be manufactured here itself. Cloth production and garments manufacturing provide a cycle of opportunities to all the textile workers.